Jesus says God will send them a strong delusion that they will believe a lie. And it will tempt, if you will, even the elect might be deceived. That's how powerful this is going to be. Okay. When will it occur? The supreme religious deception is that of the Antichrist. This is the only place in the Catechism that names this person outright. The supreme religious deception is that of the Antichrist. Who is he? A pseudo-messianism by which man glorifies himself in the place of God and is Messiah that comes in the flesh. This all is focusing us on Revelation 20, believe it or not. I wanted you to get the foundation from what the church says about these last time events so that you are not deceived. Okay? Now, this is very telling. 676. The Antichrist deception already begins to take place in the world every time the claim is made to realize within history that messianic hope, which can only be realized beyond history through the eschatological judgment. Meaning what? Meaning there is the deception of the Antichrist is this belief that we can create our own heaven on earth without God. It's the utopian plans of political thinkers and leaders who think that they can make a utopia here on earth. You say, well, no one does that recently. Oh, I would say in our recent years, this was the lure or the promise of communism. If we create a socialist class, then everyone will be happy and there won't be all of this capitalism, you know, all this stuff going on, all this oppression of the poor. If we can do that, then we create a utopia.
And it was pure evil.
And the whole idea was to throw out God. It was very obvious. Throw out God, make the state the supreme ruler, and then everything is going to be happy and everyone's going to be just fine, right? Wrong. But this is a good example in modern times of how political theory, sponsored by military might, tried to enforce this. And according to the church, this is the Antichrist deception. Yes?
No, I was just going to say, earlier when we talked about enslavement, we went back to the Romans and so forth. This type of socialism and communism and stuff, you don't realize you're enslaved, but you don't eat unless the state gives it to you.
Mm-hmm.
They give you a card, they give you a this, they give you a phone. You're enslaved. You don't look at it that way, but it is enslavement.
And I would argue, in this kind of thinking, the mark of the beast is you're pledging allegiance to the state. Because what does it say in Revelation? No one buys or sells unless they have the mark of the beast. Unless you pledge the party line, guess what? You're out. Now that's a very modern example. I would say this goes all the way back, and I keep bringing it up because I think it's far underlooked in terms of eschatological understanding. At the time when Henry VIII, when he broke away from the Church of Rome, and he declared, or he put into law, the act of supremacy, meaning you had to acknowledge that the King of England was the supreme head of the church and not the Pope in Rome. And if you didn't, you were treasonous because you are denying the king his power and you're pledging your allegiance to a foreign king. That's treason. Right? And so what happens? They come to you and you say, you follow the Pope? You think he's the head of the church? And you're not acknowledging the king?
You lose your head.
You lose your head. And there were so many martyrs because they would not acquiesce to that law. And I would argue those that did receive the mark of the beast. Why? Because you're putting your faith where? In the state, not in God. You see that? That's the real mark of the beast, and that's been happening since the time of Christ. Are you going to burn incense to the image of the emperor? Why not? You're a good citizen of Rome? Why won't you burn your incense to the emperor? Oh, someone else is God, right? Remember that little clip from Quo Vadis where Pompea told Nero, they worship another God, one that's more powerful than you, that says they will destroy the world with fire. So it's like, well, you believe in someone greater than the king, greater than the emperor, greater than the prime minister? So at the end of time, when this eschatological figure comes, he's going to demand worship from himself. And if you don't, you're treasonous. And off with your head. I mean, this will not surprise anyone. This has been going on from the dawn of time, and it's been the challenge of the faithful to walk this line. How much do we acknowledge and honor the king? And we do, but we do not place him above God, because we recognize that that person is placed there by God. That's why we honor them, even if they're wicked, because we recognize they're there by God. But we do not do what they say or tell us in honoring or worshiping them. You see what I'm saying? Ralph.
I put another example of that would be the Reign of Terror in the French Revolution.
Yes.
Where they literally died, you were beheaded if you disagree with Robespierre.
Same idea. Yep. Whenever you pledge your allegiance to the state over God, that's the spirit of the Antichrist that's being mentioned here. Yes.
And I find it also amazing that Jesus tells us, he gives us the answer on how to deal with this. He says, give unto Caesar.
Yes.
Caesar's.
Yes.
So he
Yes.
says, you can walk this line. This is how you do it.
Yes, that's a very good point. Jesus already told us how we walk this line. You give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Who's on your money? Dead president. Well, give to the president what is the president's. You give to God what is God's. What's God's? My life. Everything.
This is little a, right? We're talking about?
Both. Both. Yes.
Well, in this modern times, Chip, how would you comment that with regards to the theory of relativism? It appears that it's becoming to be prevalent and increasing in today's world.
Well, it is very prevalent in today's world, primarily in our Western nations, meaning Europe, North America, that kind of thing. You don't have this problem in China as much. What do I mean by that? Well, because the line is very clear.
What, I didn't understand what she said.
She said, what, repeat your...
In today's modern world, how would you relate or connect this with the theory of relativism?
Of relativism?
Yes. This idea that, well, let everyone, live and let live, and just relax, Just relax. Just live and let live. Don't get so uptight about everything. You know, just let everyone do their own thing and
Or you could
don't
be
bother.
condoning.
You just roll with everything.
You could be condoning some things,
You know? And I would say that this is primarily prevalent in our Western cultures, but not so in cultures like in the Middle East or in China, because the church is under persecution there. There's no time or place for relativism. There isn't. You can't be, well, live and let live, and, you know, you can't do that.
It's had a bad effect.
Yes. But in those places, it's like, do you follow Christ or not? And if you say yes, you could be shot. Just shot right offhand by the state or by some rogue group. And that's that. I mean, there's no room for that kind of in-betweenness. When Henry did his decree, you couldn't waffle on it. You had to make a decision. And I think in our Western culture, because we are so wealthy and we're so comfort-oriented, there isn't that level of persecution. This relativism, this kind of watered-downness, is a lot more in vogue because you're not under, you know, one's going to shoot you if you accept Christ. No one's preventing you from going to Mass on Sunday. No one's going to prevent you. You know what I'm saying? Yet. But I'm saying is that in comparison to those in China, to those who live in Iraq, to those who live in other parts of the world that are Christian, in which it is, there's a big difference. And you don't find the relativism there like you do here. That's how I would answer that. And that's interesting that in 675 it says, before his second coming, the church must pass through a final trial. There will be that final demarcating point. And if we saw anything in the book of Revelation, it's this dividing of those who follow the Lamb, those who follow the woman clothed with the sun, her offspring, and those that follow the beast and the dragon. And is this new? No, this comes all the way back to Adam and Eve, the descendants of Cain and the descendants of Seth. There were these lines of demarcation, and it's always been that way. So again, there's that recapitulation that we see in the book of Revelation. This, which side are you going to fall on? That separates things into light and dark. And that's also an answer to that relativism. There is no gray when it comes to this final judgment. There is no halfway house. You're in heaven or hell in the end. Period. Period. There is no gray in the end. You are followers of God and Christ, or you're not. And in the final battle that we saw, that was a final demarcating part as well. And this has been consistent throughout the entire vision that we've seen. Okay? I want to talk about, okay, we've got up to this point. This next sentence is how we're going to connect into Revelation chapter 20. The church has rejected even modified forms of this falsification of the kingdom to come under the name of millenarianism, especially the intrinsically perverse political form of secular messianism. Okay? Now I'll explain what that big 50-cent word millenarianism means, because it has a direct bearing on Revelation chapter 20. That's why I'm going through all this preamble. I wanted you to see what the church has said about these issues before we delve into the scripture, so that you have a clear understanding of where we're going to base from. This final paragraph ends this section. The church will enter the glory of the kingdom only through the final Passover, when she will follow her Lord in his death and resurrection. The kingdom will be fulfilled then, not by historic triumph of the church through progressive ascendancy, but only by God's victory over the final unleashing of evil, which will cause his bride to come down from heaven. God's triumph over the revolt of evil will take the form of the last judgment after the final cosmic upheaval of this passing world. That's what we're going into in Revelation 20, 21, and 22. Okay? Are we good? Now, the church has rejected this modified form of falsification of the kingdom under the name of millenarianism. What is millenarianism? It comes from the word millennium. Not the falcon, millennium. Because I'm a Star Trek fan, not Star Wars, and we don't mention the Millennium Falcon. We mention the Enterprise. Okay, the millennium. I think I misspelled it. I think it's with an I.
Close enough.
I'll change it. It annoys me. Millennium? That still doesn't look right.
M-I-L-L-E.
E. Thank you. All right. Didn't look right. Millennium. The word simply means 1,000 years. Okay? It refers to a 1,000-year period. We talk about the second millennium, you know, year 2000, the new millennium. What are we talking about? A new 1,000 years. Another 1,000 years has passed. That's what the word means. It just simply means 1,000 years. Okay? Well, the church has rejected this falsification of the kingdom under the term millenarianism. What does that mean? It means that there are